look, it's the treasure. And look at that. She's a squirrel with a gold necklace. Isn't that interesting? Hey, can I read what she's saying?
Yep, I just wanted to take a look at some of these things.
Let's put pressure on our trading partners. A fee on imported goods that we deem pollution intensive.
Yes. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this. So currently there are things going through the courts because they are finding that third-party sellers on Amazon are putting very toxic materials, especially fake makeup and stuff, up for sale. And this makeup has origins overseas, typically in China, but that there's very little is being done to regulate and ensure that these things are safe for consumption in the United States.
Oh man,
What?
Talk about the makeup. Not exactly pollution, but
Well, this particular makeup, they're finding that there are people mimicking top brands and that they're actually full of asbestos. Like, think of eyeshadow and powder. Asbestos, they have gluing agents for compacts and such, and in lipsticks and such. They're finding highly, lead in red objects. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So they're finding highly toxic things, but there's no oversight. And one reason why it's so easy for China to bring things into the United States is that for years, they have been given a pass on the exorbitant shipping and importation rates that other countries have to contend with. One thing that was brought up was that to ship a package to overseas, a lot of independent artists, it's in order to ship their product, it would cost as much as the product itself, if not more. Imagine if you were selling a print to someone over in Europe. It would be,
Oh yeah.
$20 to ship it overseas. But guess what? If a product from China was shipping to the United States or Europe, they get a pass because of trade agreements, so they get to ship something for $3, $6. And that's why it is so prevalent that we are getting a lot of cheap, toxic, and often infringing or patent infringing, trademark infringing, copyright infringing material from China. It's because they are able to ship things universally
Minimal regulation.
without, regulation. So
yeah.
I say we do not bring pollution intensive things into.
Yeah.
Now, who is that impacting?
It's
People
pissing off the globalists a little bit.
The
World peace,
globalists are.
internationalism, global justice.
But the other thing too is in a way, we should also support our local.
Yeah, not to the point
makers.
of like full jingoism, like only buy local, even if it makes no sense.
I would rather purchase something that's a little bit more expensive if it helps.
Yeah.
Independent creators and small companies.
Plus, in the wake of coronavirus, you really do actually want to have decentralized manufacturing, because if any one link in the chain breaks, we're in trouble. So, like, yeah, if all of our global manufacturing for basic commodities was all centralized in, like, 2 or 3 countries, and say they all get sick or war or any number of things, it's like,
Yeah, and the thing about this is fee on imported goods, but this is fee on imported goods that we deem pollution intensive.
Yep.
So, ooh, the energy advisor, look at that, they're an eel.
For a swift transition to renewables, we need to create a new agency, a power marketing administration.
Wait.
Market solutions only. So this makes the finances people happy. Let's do it.
Okay.
We have tons of money. A Native American tribe is suing the State Department for authorizing an oil pipeline on their land. Controversial.
Oh, the oil pipeline stuff. So
fight it or settle. I mean, I'm gonna be honest here.
I wouldn't want to put any more oil pipelines
Yeah.
through land. No.
It wrecks the environment. And honestly, we shouldn't need oil. Like, we should be transitioning off of that stuff ASAP.
Because it is not going to last. Because the oil that we have today is essentially compact dinosaur plant matter plankton
Just a bunch of dead stuff. Yeah.
That have been fossilized and...
We do not get that stuff back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you also destroy so much of the land just to acquire it.
Yep.
All right, environmentalist. Oh, look, they're a polar bear. This is so embarrassing. I want to kill myself. We have to reroute that pipeline and pay reparations. Wait, what?
So, remember, the pipeline already went through and the Indian tribe was suing. And then the environmentalists are mad because it was made at all and everybody is upset. Reroute it somewhere better. I mean, I'd still be... Let's see. Given time, oil's a renewable resource. Yeah. Tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years.
No, that took millions. That took
Yeah,
200 million years.
I think it is very
to
possible.
Get crushed
I
into
think it is very
position.
possible to create oil through more modern techniques, but none of that has anything to do with oil pipelines or drilling, and everything to do with science.
Like, reasonably, humans are going to run out of oil in the next couple hundred years, and
Yep.
at that point...
Well, I was going to say, like, using vegetable matter and stuff to create
Oh yeah,
kind
people
of
have been making ethanol and stuff, but it's actually growing all the corn for it's highly intensive, and unfortunately machinery hasn't been able to...
Standing Rock won their case against the Army Corps of Engineers this week. That's freaking good news. Gosh, I wish I heard
Nice.
more stuff like that. Well, yeah, we could also have a massive extinction event to force that large of a conversion of biomass to fossil fuels. Yeah, but we wouldn't be around to enjoy that. Standing Rock is actually... That's what this is referencing, at least to some degree. Anyway, reroute. Because, again, we have a lot of money. Does it? No, it doesn't touch.
It's
really just-
sending one of the economic people, and
Yeah,
the
they're
other
going to be
economic
mad at me
people
no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this person's going to be kind of back and forth anyway.
Because they have... That's the thing, too. You have some of these people that have some right-leaning
Well, yeah,
and some
'cause
left-leaning...
Not everybody is a
positions.
Boolean. Anyway, reroute. Bad reputation among the elites. Befriend a billionaire. Some of them are decent people. Class enemies. Ooh.
Interesting. So, befriend a billionaire?
So interesting, no matter what, the economics people like both of these decisions. That amuses the hell out of me. So this makes labor real happy. This makes labor unhappy. It makes... Well...
Everyone seems to like class enemies. What's going on?
I think because it's popular to hate on the rich, and it's real easy to get people behind you on that one, except for the rich. Though that can have consequences. Kind of.
What would be better is if you could find rich people that do want to
Yeah.
help the environment and help spur progress, because, I mean, they do have the capital to help with that, but...
And then, still tax the hell out of them. I just...
Well, hopefully they would be, you know, they would be fine with it.
For ages, the idea of billions of dollars, I was like, man, that's a lot of money. And then one day somebody sat me down and it's like, have you ever actually thought about how much money that is? Have you ever thought about how much money $1 billion is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is.
I have a... What is this? Is it a 60-inch TV?
This is a 55.
55-inch TV.
How many pixels are on it?
It's a 4K 55-inch TV. Cost me $1,000. A little over.
Mhm.
1 million of those.
1 million TVs.
1 million of those stacked on top of each other. Can you even conceive of how many TVs that would be?
Mm-hmm.
It would destroy this house. Hell, it might even destroy a solid section of this town if you were to land that many TVs.
No, I
Here.
know. I think part of it is sad to see these billionaires who have made so much off while their workers suffer.
Yeah.
That is the true travesty.
Let's see. Are we allowed to post links? I have a good visualization of how much $1 billion is.
And the
I can
sad thing
repost it
is
if
people
you
like
get nukes.
Bezos are getting to $1 trillion, if not already
Yeah.
surpassing it. And $1 trillion is a million billions, or what was it?
Yeah.
Ah.
A trillion is 1,000 billions.
1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not
It's
a
just
million billion.
thousand,
millions. That would be too much.
Yep. But no, talking about befriending a billionaire, you know, one of the good ones. I hate that. Hey, that actually worked.
Well, the other thing too is, if you notice in a lot of elections, people don't want the stigma of having a billionaire.
Well, yeah,
donating
nowadays
to them,
especially.
Because the problem with that is then you're wondering, oh, are these
Is
politicians
this person bought and paid for? And like, I've heard a lot of people compliment Bill Gates, and criticize Bill Gates for a lot of things. I like the guy now that he's older and not suing the shit out of anybody that was on his turf, and seems to be pushing for causes.
Yeah, we saw him in a video with Mark Rober eating
at the same time
vegetarian meat.
I think he should be outspoken and potentially leading the cause, but one of Bill Gates' things is specifically he believes he should have a say in where all of his money goes for like charitable donations. And I can understand it if only because that way he can guarantee it's not mismanaged. But at the same time, I do not feel like private interest should specifically be the only things.
But imagine, Wander, you saw the budgets.
Oh, absolutely.
And so you're having to wonder, what if you do want all of your money to go into social programs and less to the acquisition of military gear?
Yeah. Just giving it to the government isn't great either. I feel like you would need massive government reforms. I mean, we need it no matter what.
Now,
But
if they did give things to charitable causes, is that what they put in their tax deductions or things like that?
Oftentimes, yeah. But though, there's kind of a maximum
But you have to
amount.
wonder if they're actually donating it to puppet companies and other things.
Every billionaire is a policy failure. See, yeah, kind of. Like, I would totally understand it if you had a company that paid all its taxes, paid all its employees handsomely. You know, where the CEO is paid at max 100
People
times.
working for a company should not have to go on welfare programs from the government.
Yeah.
Because the
Oh, gosh.
Especially if the company has a means
How
to
many
pay
of
for
you
them.
guys saw the McDonald's budget? I want to say it's like 6-10 years ago or something like
McDonald's actually advised their workers to get a second job.
that. Yeah, that they put together a budget outlining how you could live while working for McDonald's at whatever the previous minimum wage was as an argument against raising the minimum wage. And it was missing a lot of key things like health insurance, car insurance, just like it was the most out of touch, ridiculous idea for a budget that only would work if you lived at home with your parents. And one of their proposed solutions for if you don't have enough money, get a second 40-hour job. I work easily.
You work more than 100 hours, I swear.
Possibly, yeah. Like, I work easily. I would say I'm like somewhere between 70 and 100 hours a week. And it is.
I think you work from about noon until midnight.
Yeah.
I think you work too much.
Or more. Yeah. Okay. I will grant that. I work way too much.
Granted,
and
the work is also in part fun.
Yeah.
Right.
My work is great. I love my job. I love everything that I do.
But you're also beholden to no one except YouTube.
Yeah, and my audience. And it means that every day that I get up, there's something new and fun for me to do, and I benefit from it almost exclusively. And so I don't have to worry about like middle management or anything like that. And so I can safely say that like, yeah, I should work less. But I can also safely say that like no one should be working this much.
There's a good point. Someone's bringing up that when the minimum wage is raised, then so do the costs. That's because companies are trying to
bleed people as much as possible.
Right, and that's why that there actually has to be caps on things like rent, especially.
Well, yeah, you need regulation. That actually happened in Portland, is that they raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and rent has gone up tremendously with almost no quality increases. So specifically...
And they found that with the way that inflation has gone and everything else, we are definitely making less money. Like, the average person makes less money than what would have been...
Yeah, inflation has gone out of control, and like workplace raises and a bunch of other things have not gone up either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was talking to another guy who I normally disagree with fairly fervently politically, but he was talking about the reason why he got out of the working world is because there was no possibility for advancement no matter what he did.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, he was going to be stuck at X pay rate, and the only way to get a raise to even make enough money to, you know, retire comfortably was to invest heavily. And that didn't sit right with him because it effectively meant he wasn't going to do a good job. And he was in a very important job as far as, like, society goes.
I suppose, in the end, do we befriend these billionaires or just class enemies?
I'm gonna go class enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally fine with having people...
But we don't want to be in their pocket.
Yeah. I'm totally fine with
Even if
billionaires
implied.
if they can earn it not on the backs of other people. But right now, it's very much on the backs of other people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The Supreme Court is still dominated by old conservatives and threatens to overturn your policies. Should we reform it? How?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, how?
We can add 2 new seats to rebalance the Supreme Court. The Republicans turned it into a partisan body. Let's take it back.
Oh, wait, but adding seats...
It's legal and has been done in the past.
Really? Who did
Yep. it? Gosh. I think the current 9
Well, also,
is fairly recent.
Quite frankly, guys, I think the Supreme Court should not be a appointment for life situation.
Nope.
Because if you notice, people are holding on until they're barely able to stand. Like, there are members of the Supreme Court that are probably nearing 90 years old, right? And they can't retire because they know that if they leave their seat, that depending on who's in office, the person replacing them might not have the similar views. But the thing is, the problem with the courts too is that they're supposed to be nonpartisan and non-biased because it's just about the rule of law. But anyone who appoints someone to it has a biased spin, and they're going to appoint someone that shares their views. So are the courts really unbiased? It's...
Yeah. Hate that it's lifetime, but it's required because otherwise it'll be completely partisan.
The problem is, too, though, that then the people that are on it were growing up 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And the country has changed so much in that
I
time.
think I have that issue, beyond just the Supreme Court. I have that issue with politics in general, that too many of our politicians are old. Like, way too old. Like, full disclosure, I'm extremely liberal, and, you know, my first pick was Warren, then Bernie, and then whatever the heck. And all of those people are older than 70, and that's not okay. Our presidents, our political leaders, should be able to run a mile comfortably. And they shouldn't be at risk of, you know, keeling over. We should have people that grew up in kind of a recent era that understands the difference between Google and Apple when it comes to iPhones. Like, gosh, it was a couple years ago.
And a lot of reform needs to go into internet.
Yes.
The internet regulation and security and such.
Let's see, to be honest, Warren probably could. She's like the only one that is actually healthy. Like, I like Bernie Sanders to a fair degree, but he's getting old.
So, running for president, Wander actually didn't know about this. I said 35.
Yep.
And he thought it was 45.
I thought you had to be 45 or older, but no, it's 35. Which I almost feel like is, I believe Barack Obama's in his 30s. No. Obama was, what, late 40s, early 50s?
I thought that he was, like,
he's 58 now.
Mid-40s.
So, 12 years ago, he would have been, what, 46?
Okay. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Was John F. Kennedy one of the youngest presidents ever elected?
I think so. JFK aged when elected. He was 43. I think it was the youngest. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like people that are currently in their 40s probably are at least relatively in tune. But even then, with the internet age, it throws everything way off. Because, like, my experience growing up is probably wildly different from somebody that's 20.
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
definitely. I mean, we're seeing kids out on the streets with smartphones already attached to their little 3-year-old fingers. And we
Oh, yeah, we go to restaurants and we see kids glued to a tablet. I'm like, I guess that was me with a Game Boy, but...
And...
Oh, Teddy Roosevelt was the youngest. He was 42. Good to know.
Oh, okay. I mean, it would make sense, too. The further you go back, the younger people had to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing, too, is we grew up when... I think the first computer my family owned was a Windows 93, like Windows 95 machine.
Yep.
And we had an old Atari from the 70s, but it was one of those things where we saw the birth of, like, home video and early PC gaming and the landlines to cell phones and
The internet.
the internet itself.
Going from a tool to a social platform, but only for the nerdiest, dweebiest people on in the world.
For a time, there were only official websites and CE websites, and then now social media has a huge
Yeah, now
place in
everybody's
it.
on the internet.
Mhm.
Now, literally, no one is 5 minutes. Well, almost no one is 5 minutes from, logging into whatever website they want to be on, and the sheer spread of it is nuts. And the idea that most of our modern politicians and policy setters barely even know how to work a computer, let alone a smartphone, is spooky. Especially when cybersecurity is so important nowadays.
And also, all those years ago, just social norms
Yeah.
have also changed
Yeah.
so much. So, in any case,
Anyway,
what
let's
are
keep
the
going.
other ideas, though?
Oh, yeah, let's ask. We can limit the Supreme Court's justices' tenure. Each president appoints 2 members, which replace the most senior ones.
Oh gosh, that would amend the Constitution, though. I
It
suppose
would
that's what we were
pass,
suggesting
but that's
before.
actually not a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are
Wait,
better.
so each president appoints 2 members, which replace the senior ones? This
Yeah.
means that it will more reflect what people have voted for.
Yeah,
In a way, this is
Yeah.
what we were just discussing. Let's do it.
yeah, I like it. I like that a lot, actually.
That way, people can retire.
Yeah. We need to move from punishment to rehabilitation. More funding to inmates training, healthcare, and education. Hell yeah. Don't even need to talk about that one.
Oh, look, the education advisor's a cute little owl. Motion to wait. What?
Sorry,
can
I
read
just
it?
wanted to see what the effects were.
Motion to cancel the student debt affecting millions of Americans.
I'm in favor. I've heard a lot of arguments against, but it seems like a significant portion of
So-
them are...
So the only arguments that I've heard against canceling student debt is, what about the people who went to college 5 years ago or 2 years ago, and that means that they had paid...
I mean, honestly...
Oh, wait, this is affecting debt, so it would affect them. But imagine the people who did slog their way through working and managed to pay off their $100,000 of student debt, but then a person in the same year as them who still had $50,000 left over, they just get the $50,000 back.
I will say, well, they don't get the $50,000 back. It's not that they're being handed $50,000. It's just that they're...
Well, if the fact that they don't have to pay that $50,000 in a way means that they will have $50,000.
I guess
the person who
easier
paid
way
off
to
their
describe
debt
it is
before didn't.
everybody's running a race, but your debt is a wagon full of bricks behind you. The bigger your debt, the slower you run, the less effective you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who've already rid themselves of their load, they can run freely.
They can run freely. It's
And-
kind of like how our parents were able
Yeah,
to pay
and
for our
so-
education.
It does suck for everybody that paid, that everybody lost that money. It does suck. You could have used that money. But no matter what, the benefits for everyone, including the people that paid it off, would wildly outweigh the negatives. And yes, somebody's saying it's a temporary solution, though. I mean, realistically, higher education should be free, sort of. I feel like
mean, so for instance, we have community colleges, which a lot of people avoid because they tend not to be well funded and don't have the best programs. There's, at least back in my home state of New York, there was the SUNY system, which was the state's school system, the state university system of New York. And they had fairly good colleges that were, I would say, more like $3,000 or $5,000 a year. It was fairly low.
Yeah.
It was the private schools that were still
expensive.
$25,000 a year or something along those lines, and that was without scholarships. And it is true that scholarships were proportional. I know that, I mean, I think I could have gotten almost a free ride if I had gone to one of the state schools.
Oh, I absolutely could have.
I ended up going to a private school because I thought that its program was the most forward-thinking when it came to... Wander and I went to school for art, and we specifically wanted to go into digital art and concept art and comics and such. And RET was a school that had a lot of tech associated with it. I suppose I just gave away our school.
Whatever.
But,
it's been years since we were there.
But in any case, they were a technical institute, and as such had a huge gaming program, animation, computer science, and things of that nature. So I happened to get scholarships. They weren't going to pay the entirety of the cost, but that definitely helped. But in any case, and unfortunately, schools don't guarantee you anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
like,
YouTubers now.
Yeah. Like,
and
I worked my ass off in college.
Very few of our classmates, at least thus far that I've been able to tell, have gone industry work. But
and
some
admittedly,
have.
We did go to art school. I know a lot of my friends that went to the tech side of things for the tech jobs actually did get fairly sweet jobs. Go figure. It's a demand market.
Yeah, it's a lot of supply and demand too.
But I know a lot of people that didn't. That I know a lot of people that fell into lesser jobs than what they were trained for because, yeah, the availability wasn't there. And that the only way they could have gotten something was to move to, San Francisco or whatever. And the other thing I was actually going to say is that of my friends that did get really sweet jobs, a lot of them still live in kind of shitty situations. One of my roommates works for Google, lives in San Francisco in a studio apartment
that probably costs twice or three times as much as the
this
place
house
that we're renting.
Yeah.
But I think that's also an issue with how corporations are set up. They kind of plant themselves in these already in high demand cities, and they make the demand to
so
move
much
there
worse.
even
Yeah, we have
more.
that here with Nike and Intel.
Some of our friends that finally made it into Hollywood did so because they moved out to LA, and they had to live in precarious situations or scrape money, or maybe they had parents to help them, but it was one of those things where not everyone can pick up themselves and move to one of the most expensive cities in the United States with the hopes of getting a job. So many job applications. I was
applying for jobs in San Francisco, and the whole time I was trying to figure out how to budget it. And my answer was, I'm going to lose money, but I'll have a job. And the answer was, oh gosh, that was stupid. And also, extremely, I don't know, not everybody has that amount of money just saved up. Let's see what we're
But in any case, so yeah, what we were saying is that going to college doesn't guarantee you those good jobs.
But it does help.
It helps if they have the proper networking.
Yeah.
I don't really think many of them do have proper networking, and the ones that tend to have proper networking are the ones already in the cities with the network of hubs and jobs and such.
I was also going to say, post-coronavirus, I really hope a lot of these companies start rethinking the idea of having people work in centralized locations.
Oh yeah, artists, there's no reason why artists need to live in LA in order to work on a movie if they're doing the concept art for it. you could just have people giving out assignments. Hey, can you do some character designs for, this particular sword that we want? It has to have these features and stuff. And yeah, so much can be done via email. I suppose if they want to make sure nothing leaks, they would want it to be on their own machines or in an office setting, but...
This is a good point, too. We also need more help deciding our direction in high school rather than starting in college.
Yeah.
So many people go to college with no specific goal for a specific job, which wastes both time and money. If you don't have something in mind, you end up with a degree in a less useful field.
I know a lot of people that have gone into school for
that have
like
just
liberal
absolutely
studies.
totally wasted 4 years. I know people.
Communications is a popular one. What are other things?
I had a friend who was a professional DJ in high school. He made more money than I make now. And
being
like,
a DJ.
Yeah, he was like primo DJ at the time, and his parents convinced him that it would be better for his future for him to go to college. And so they eventually convinced him to go for software engineering. Or no, computer science. But he didn't really want to go into computer science, so he dropped down to software engineering, and then to... I think it was IT. There was multiple steps that he just dropped down. In terms of, like, he didn't know what he wanted to do, and so he kept going for the easier tech programs that didn't require as much. And that's not saying that IT is at all easy, but that was the perceived notion at the time. And I think I went to a freaking frat, so there was a lot of terrible opinions thrown around in there.
But in any case,
he had no idea what he wanted to do, and now he isn't a DJ anymore because he lost all of his rep, and he drives a dump truck. And I think he's happy doing it. But the last time I talked to him, he said he had wished that he had just stuck with a DJ. And I know he's like a complete other thing, but like, yeah, why don't we talk to kids about what they want to do and actually start working towards that? Because that would have been valuable for me in high school and even in college, because my college program was too general. I wanted to be a digital concept artist, and so many of my teachers are like, you're going to learn the techniques of old, and I'm like, no one needs those anymore. They're like, it's the only way to validate my existence, and it's like, oh, you suck.
The problem with our art program was that by junior and senior year, when we should have had really polished portfolios for the industry that we wanted to get into, they were still having us do random
fluff
things
classes
and
to
random
buff their egos
mediums and stuff. And the only reason why Wander and I had portfolios that were even remotely cohesive was because we spent 75% of our time outside of class working on our own paintings.
Also, I'm gonna quote Jonas here, seeing as he's hanging out in chat. Also, shout out to Jonas. How was your evening? But I don't see my schooling as a waste. For me, college was more about learning how to think critically and how to communicate and question things. Absolutely. If I hadn't gone to college, I'm not sure if I would have made it here. Beyond learning my art skills, I got to meet so many other people. I got to leave my town. I had to be on my own. I had to learn how to work for myself, and not just because a teacher demanded of me, because, in high school, you get in trouble if you don't do anything. In college, you get kicked out. But that takes months first. And it's one of those that, like...
For me, I was always, I think, a little bit insulated.
I'll let you talk about this. I'll be right back.
In part by choice. But I think the thing, too, was where I went to school, I was definitely one of those, straight A students. One of the better essayists. I think I did, like, some, national writing competitions and stuff with the teachers specifically choosing students for it. And it was one of those things where, for me, even though I went to college still in the same city as my hometown, I was always just a short drive away from my parents and such. I didn't even get my driver's license until I met Wander, and the summer that he was working in town, I finally got my license so that I'd be able to drive to visit him. But I was so stuck in my fictional worlds. I was, crafting new characters and creatures and stuff. And going to college meant that I didn't have... When you go to college, you don't have that built-in friend group that you may have had in middle school or high school that you always hung out with, because when you're going to grade school, the people that are surrounding you are members of your immediate neighborhoods and communities and such. You didn't necessarily choose your friends there, and they don't really come from a diverse background because they're all in the same town in the same place. But when you go to college, you get people from several different states and all different circumstances, and it really opens your eyes to just, I suppose, new perceptions and things. And the thing too is that I learned a lot from my peers as opposed to the teachers that Wander was referring to as dinosaurs and such back then. Because from some of our friends in the art program, learned some tips about digital painting and about selling your work at conventions and just building up the courage to do those things. And also being on my own for the first time in my life, it was definitely a new adventure. Doing more social events, like going out to dinner and hanging out in the art studio and drawing and talking with people. I mean, meeting Wander and such. So I found that I learned more from my peers than necessarily the professors. But unfortunately, it's not the best coming into adulthood experience for people. I know that there are a lot of people that can't take college or the strain of it, and it's a very expensive thing to throw people into. But in any case, I suppose back to this, because we've been going on and on about it for a long time. Student debt, I think really maybe there has to be some, what would you say, like, state schools should definitely be better funded.
Yeah, state schools should be better funded and free. Private schools should be regulated to make sure that you don't have degree mills and scams.
Oh yeah, degree mills.
And that, you know, the programs that they are offering are not just going to shunt people out. At least people will know that if they go for the underwater basket weaving degree equivalent, that they know what they're getting into. Because I think that has to do a lot with career counseling beforehand too. But yeah, just more oversight to make sure that no one's, you know, just running a scam. And if you make state school, or on a national level, you can go to any national college for free. All the private schools would probably start self-reforming to compete. No Trump University. God, no. Ugh. Seconded.
We have failed a generation. Student debt is a major crisis that we can end immediately.
That's my money. Cancel all debt. Ooh, wow. Look at my money go down.
Oh my.
It's fine.
You might run out of money before this is over with.
We can go into the negative. We'll figure it out.
Okay, go.
Pensions are just deferred compensation, but bosses can legally cut them. Do something about it. Protect the pensions. Cost me nothing, and power to the people.
Yeah, I mean, pensions.
It's true.
Pension. My mother. Yeah, I mean, she has a pension, and a lot of people who ever worked as in government or with teachers or like as teachers and such have pensions. My father, who was working for
Wasn't he let go right before it kicked in?
No, so he worked for a very integral company in my hometown, my home city, that went into bankruptcy because it didn't modernize fast enough. But in any case, I remember my parents and I would go out to a restaurant to celebrate all the layoffs that he had survived, if you will. And that went on for years. But eventually they finally did lay him off, and it was, you know, before his 30-some year pension was going to kick in. So his pension's actually a lot less than my mother's, even though they worked the same number of years in their respective jobs. But hers, because it was associated with New York State teachers, unions and associations, she was able to get a better payout for their. And the thing about pensions is you're paid a portion of your salary for the rest of your life, which means that and for seniors especially, it's very difficult without a pension to make money or to have enough money to last themselves. And as people are able to live to greater and older ages, people are spending almost 50% of their lives no longer working. You spend the first 20 years of your life going to school and such, but then you have to make all the money that's going to last you from about 60 until you're almost 100. You have to make sure that you've made that money. Huh?
There's a really good Unraveled video on that talking about
you have to make as
Mario
much money
retiring.
as you need between age 20 something and maybe 55 or 60 something. And unfortunately for a lot of seniors, they don't have that unless they had really good investments, really good properties that they're able to sell off. They made it rich in the stock market or something else, who knows, but pensions are, and people need job security in order to get pensions, obviously, but yeah, protect pensions. Look at this tech guru albino rat. What is he saying?
We are developing a series of visionary solutions to global warming. Do you want to hear our pitches? I am open to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Pitch: we cool the earth by spraying aerosols into the stratosphere.
No!
Same as a couple big volcanoes.
No!
That is insane.
No! That is insane! Because, okay, aerosols break down the Can I explain this?
Sure.
Aerosols break down the ozone layer, which would result in more UV rays coming through our atmosphere and scorching our planet. The reason why Earth is so unique amongst most planets is because it has a magnetic field that protects us from our own sun. And it also holds in our atmosphere. I mean, sure, they're saying, oh, but if we destroy it, then we can get our atmosphere back, right? And it's like, no, we're going to lose so many of the essential gases that we need to breathe. But also, we're going to just get pummeled with UV radiation. Volcanoes? Setting off volcanoes would lead to, quote unquote, like a, what was it, global cooling that they're probably proposing, but it's also going to like plunge us into an ice age.
Yeah.
And not to mention all of the fact that the ash raining down would.
The thing
end
is,
up
it just
killing
did
everyone.
not sound nearly as like well founded based on proper evidence. I'm open to anything, and then like, let's just do this crazy thing. It's like, do you actually know? I feel like this game does need a little bit more feedback to explain why these decisions are important and how they could go. It does feel like just watching meters go up is a little impersonal. Anyway, let's keep going a little bit. Let's provide a swift pathway to citizenship for the millions of undocumented immigrants in America. This one's touchy.
It's a touchy
for a lot of
thing
people.
Because obviously you have people that say, oh, well, I did all of the paperwork to get, a legal status before coming in. And I know that for many people, it takes years to get legal status, and some of them have to
sometimes it's straight up impossible, or takes their whole lives, even if,
working visas and a whole host of things like that. I mean, my ancestors, I suppose my mother's side of the family...
Let's be honest, our ancestors had it easy. Just show up and they let you in.
Well, my mom's ancestors, they were... I don't know specifically when they came to the United States, but it can be traced back to a lot of, like, really, like, noble, well-off families in Europe, and then they became... They had like land and some kind of ownership of things in the United States, but that's like that's generations and generations off. More of my immediate family members from my mom's sides were just sort of like middle class workers. My father's side, they didn't come over to the United States until southeastern European immigrants were even allowed to come to the United States. They weren't allowed to come to the United States until the late 1800s, at which point they came through Ellis Island, and my great-grandfather was Greek, my great-grandmother was German, and her German family did not at all approve that she was considering marrying a Greek. And then my other grandfather was from Italy, and so yeah, they had it tough. They did work their way, but it was one of those things where I don't know what the process was at that time. I think they had to be able to scrounge up the money to make the trip. I know that my great-grandfather through his businesses, was able to make enough money to bring his brothers over from Greece. But I think back then, maybe it was really just making sure that you had the money for the ticket to come over. What? What are you laughing about?
I was just thinking about my ancestors, and I mean, technically, the main primary ancestor that my whole family traces back through was probably... No, this is a bad joke. He was arrested
People are
at
asking
landfall.
about my... Oh, yeah, the Plymouth Rock business.
Yeah, so one of my ancestors specifically landed at Plymouth Rock with, you know, the rest of the colonists, like the very first wave. He was on the first rowboat off. I don't know why they let him on, because he was the guy that they arrested on the way over for dueling people.
He was challenging
and being
people
an
to
awful
duels,
dude.
But he clearly was full of himself because he wanted to jump off the boat so that he could swim to shore and proclaim...
And be the first one there to name the colony after himself or whatever. And so they had to physically restrain him. I don't know. Either way, I would say from my perspective... I feel like a swift pathway... I hate the wording on swift, but I feel like an expedient and reasonable pathway.
I think it depends on a number of circumstances. I know sometimes it varies, like, you know, how many existing relatives do you already have in the country? Do you have children who are American citizens? Obviously, that's when they're born within the borders of the country and are granted citizenship upon birth.
But I would say, currently, especially, it's heinously restrictive. And honestly, evil. How bad it is here. But I feel like there are absolutely reasonable ways you can manage this.
People were asking about the royal ancestors. I suppose it can go back to a lot of... If you're related to any one of the kings and queens of England, you're probably related to a bunch of the French... I have the list somewhere, but it's a lot of interesting people. But in any case, I think among them it was like King Edward II, and unfortunately, the Plantagenet side specifically. But unfortunately, that means that my side of the family was in opposition to Queen Elizabeth and her father and other things. It's interesting.
First generation Canadian, your family came here as refugees. Sensitive topic for you. Huh.
Yeah.
That is one thing.
There's
like,
also refugees.
Yeah, no matter what, refugees, I feel like, should always be supported. Yeah. Not necessarily given a pass for all things, but you know what? If they need to flee a terrible situation and improve their lives, cool.
And it is a shame that countries that people are fleeing from are devolving into these terrible circumstances that are forcing people to flee.
Maybe part of me is just thinking from the perspective as an American, looking at some of our issues, and it's like,
I know that a number of our American friends have stated that they want to become Canadian.
Yeah.
I know it's jokingly, but...
I would enjoy living in Toronto for a year, just to see what it was like. Personally, I would love it if you could actually just flip back and forth between America and Canada freely, and just pay taxes depending on which side you live on for the year. That'd be lovely. Because yeah, then I get to go live in Nova Scotia for a year just because I could. Anyway, question. What did you mean by winning the class war? Classes in bourgeois proletariat or style and fashion?
wait.
Eat the rich!
Let me see this. What do you mean by winning the class war? Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna say style and fashion.
No. Like, truly, I still do not mean, like, necessarily violence immediately, but like taxes or student loan cancellation primarily benefited the middle class. You better have something for workers too.
Okay.
I got plenty for you.
Oh, look at the housing advisor. They're a turtle.
Oh, they're so cute. You wanna handle that one?
Yo, is it time to tackle the housing crisis?
Tackle.
We propose a big trust fund to create millions of affordable housing units. No ghettos and no red lines. We're going in the red, but we have to do it though.
Yep.
We better get money somehow. Maybe by taxing the rich?
We're officially in deficit. This means that spending exceeds revenues. It makes me quite nervous.
You are adorable.
Huh? What?
Just the squirrel lady is afraid of deficits, which I mean I think is actually
Otherwise,
quite
we
fair.
won't survive the winter. We need those nuts. It's curious how tax audits for the rich have been steadily declining. What if we increase them?
Do it.
Do it.
Do
it.
Should we keep building the wall with the Mexican border? We're like 13% done. No, get that out of there.
Oh, the immigration advisor. Is he like a wolf or a coyote?
That.
Yep.
Yeah. Your lovey-dovey immigration policies are quite unpopular. Can I help you find the right balance? No, go away. I hate you.